So what we have here is the Visual Studio project. Let me just close all these documents. We have Visual Studio project, the Visual Studio extensibility project. How this project is created is through the file menu of the new project. So we go to File, New Project, and what we have is the extensibility section here, where we get to pick a VSIX, a Visual Studio Extensibility project. And when you click OK, what you get is the Visual Studio project. And one of the main important files is the VSCT file, which defines the layout of the different pieces that we're going to add in here, or that are added in here now already. How it defines how they are laid out inside of Visual Studio, such as through the right-click menu of the editor or the window inside of View Other Windows. So if we look a little bit further into this file, we will see that we've got some IDs in here. They're a little bit curious, and what this ID here refers to is this refers to the View Other Windows, and see that here, View Other Windows, and it's not here now, but in the experimental instance we're going to run a little bit, we're going to see the window that's been added to this project. And likewise, what we have is the right click. We have the right click. The right click is linked in through this IDM VS Context code menu, so that whenever we right click in the code, we'll see the menu there as well. If we also follow the GUIDs around, we can see that the GUIDs link together back to the code. For instance, right here we've got right click command editor test method. It's going to be the one where we right click on it, it's going to do something. We follow that one, 17A5C833, and we go over here to the command 17A5C833. If we look at the rest of the GUID, we will see that they matches as well, so that whenever that right click is performed, what happens is that this piece of code here is run, is executed. There's a similar plumbing for the window that it's created. That window here is shown. What we have here, we have a user control, and the user control has a grid with some buttons, and down here we have the XAML. What Visual Studio does is takes this window and puts it inside of takes this user control and puts it inside of a window inside of Visual Studio. We'll see that in a little bit. And we just define the layout here. Got a grid toolbar. Toolbar has some buttons in it and a text block. And here we've got our resources to our view model locator. And our view model locator is just a status singleton, creates the model, so that when we have the model here inside of Visual Studio, we can do some binding with it. So we can bind to our commands and bind to our display text. If we go over to the main model here, got our commands defined, so that whenever the buttons are clicked, this method is executed. The main model is linked in with all the code. So how the main model is linked in with all the code is there's kind of a process that occurs whenever we run in the experimental instance. Essentially what happens is that the view, the window is shown, and then a method is picked, and when that method is picked, the links to the editor, links to the Visual Studio are going to be set. I'll show that here in a little bit. So what we have here is I've got the Visual Studio, the original one, running behind this. I've just clicked F5 and running the debugger, and so we're running a Visual Studio extensibility solution through the Visual Studio debugger, which gives us another Visual Studio instance. In this case, we get a Microsoft Visual Studio experimental instance. And what that allows us to do is to open up a project, one that's been previously created, where we can see all the different elements that have been added in. We go here, we go to the view menu, and we go to the other windows, and we can see the window TW method as such that when we click on it, we see the layout of the window, the buttons, and then this text area here, which currently does not have any text in it. And so that we also have the right-click editor menu, in this case right-click and test method. And what that does is that initializes the what we're going to test. It basically goes into code, and it's just go over here. Oops, that's not it. Go over here and we look at when the package is initially loaded. What it does is some debug events are tied in. The package ties in a few other items. It initializes the test method, initializes the right click. So the right click one where we have the menu like that, and then also what we have called TW method. TW method is the tool window. So that whenever we go here and we actually click on the method to test, and we click test method, that initialization initializes the method to be tested, so that whenever we actually click initialize here and we run it, those debug events that I just showed that were linked in allow the internal code of the VSIX to catch the event. So we set these events here, and we can just see it. I'm just going to put a breakpoint. This is the VSIX solution here. Oops, I need to run over here. I'm just clicking run on my other window over here. And as you see, when I clicked F5 on the other window over here, we had a breakpoint over here that entered, that was hit whenever the next breakpoint was hit inside of the running solution, the one with the test method in it. Breakpoints in this solution are used kind of as control points. I'll show that more in a little bit. Just wanted to go into this in a little bit more detail here. So over here in the experimental instance, which is running on top of Visual Studio, we've already done the initialization and run. We can do that again. It's already executed once. Let me go and run it again real quick. We can see what happens. What we have here, we're going to go ahead and initialize it. The right click and then initialize here, and then click run. And then what happens is the exception is hit. It's all through a series of breakpoints. So if we want to see those different breakpoints in action, I'm just going to go undo the breakpoints that are set there. I'm going to go ahead and redo this again. Test method, initialize, and then I'm going to toggle the stop breakpoint and then run, so we can see the different actions happening. So we see here there's a breakpoint that was hit, and that breakpoint was then deleted, and we can see that the debugger has stopped here for us. I'm going to hit continue again, and we can see this breakpoint has been hit and the debugger has stopped there for us. And then I'm going to hit continue again. We see that A was equal to 0, and that allowed us to go in and see the exception here.